Good morning and welcome to the January 12th, 2022 City Council meeting, and Happy New Year. First meeting of the year, so glad you're here. We will begin with Councilman Mcgee giving the invocation, followed by the pledge. If you please stand.
May we bow. Our gracious Father, we first of all want to thank you for this day, and we thank you for all of those who have gathered here this morning. We thank you for life, health, and strength, and we thank you for the citizens of this great city, and we thank you for our staff, and we thank you for this council, God. We pray that you will bless us in this new year to make decisions that will be beneficial to our community, and that you would give us the wisdom and guidance that we so desperately need. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we will begin with the minutes from the October 27th, 2021 meeting.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Got a motion by Westbrook, second by Mcgee. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Kyle.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. The first item we have is request to recognize an award given to the City of Tyler by the American Planning Association. The APA Texas Awards Program recognizes individuals, organizations, and communities for outstanding contributions to planning in Texas. The Richard R. Lilly FAICP Program for Planning Excellence recognizes excellence in municipalities throughout the state of Texas. Evaluation criteria include the level of training of planning commissioners and professional staff, professional qualifications of the planning staff, and the currency and master plan components and completion of other planning-related projects. The City of Tyler has been awarded the 2021 Certificate of Achievement for Planning Excellence in recognition of the professional planning standards demonstrated by planning staff, as well as the support exhibited by the City Council and the Planning and Zoning Commission. This is the 7th consecutive award that the city has received, and Tyler is one of 34 cities across the state to receive this honor. It is recommended today that the City Council accept the Certificate of Achievement for Planning Excellence from the American Planning Association, Texas Chapter, in recognition of exemplary professional city planning.
Kyle, good job. You know, you think 7 consecutive years, and just to watch you and your team and your group work is great. So just thank you for what you do, and we did take a picture beforehand, so it's not like we're not coming down to give you accolades, but we do want to thank you. So anybody else have any other comments?
Congratulations.
Great job.
Great job.
You make our job easy.
Thank you all. All right.
Z1?
Z1.
This first request is an application for a zone change from R1A and C1, which are single-family residential and light commercial, to PMF Plan Multifamily District. As you can see here, this is a little sliver of land that is kind of left over from other zone changes or recent zone changes in this area. Back in 2019, the property to the west was zoned for Plan Multifamily and C1, as you can see there. And then in 2021, earlier, or last year, the properties to the east were zoned for planned unit residential or single family residential. This little area here was left over, and so the applicant is requesting this change to essentially clean that up and bring that into the PMF, the Plan Multifamily zoning classification. At this time, the properties surrounding properties are currently undeveloped. They are planned for a mixture of single-family townhomes and commercial uses. This request would establish for adopt the existing standards that were adopted earlier back in 2019 for that planned multifamily portion. As you can see here, it's just limited to single-family attached and detached units like townhomes, and as well as senior assisted living facilities. And the setbacks are established here. The density is no more than 10 units per acre, and there is a 50-foot landscape buffer along Holly Tree Drive, which there's a little bit of this property that would be affected by that, but essentially what was approved before is also being applied to this strip of land. And so with that, the Planning and Zoning Commission by a 6-0 vote recommended approval of this request.
Any questions for Kyle?
Kyle, like we discussed yesterday when I was asking you questions about this, for those neighbors that might be hearing about this for the first time, this is just simply a cleanup issue, and it's going to be adhered to the same standards as that property to the west, correct?
That's correct.
So nothing else is changing out there? Okay. Thank you, Kyle.
Any other questions for Kyle? Comments? Entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Haney, second by Westbrook. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Z2.
This is a zone change from M1 Light Industrial District to DBAC, Downtown Business Arts and Culture District. This is in Council District number 4. The applicant's requesting the zone change to bring the existing mixed-use structure into conformance with the Unified Development Code. That's also essentially a cleanup item here. The properties to the north and east and west are currently zoned for light industrial uses and are either developed with commercial uses or are undeveloped. And the property to the south is currently zoned for zone DBAC, Downtown Business Arts and Culture District, and is developed with a commercial property. This request is consistent with the future land use guide, identifying it as high density mixed use. This property is located within the downtown planning area as identified in the Tyler First Comprehensive Plan. As you can see here, the property is a mixed residential and commercial building that I think it's been, I think we looked about 1930, 1935 when it was constructed. And so the property comprises of two stories with retail on the first floor and 4 rooms of residential use on the second floor. And the applicant plans to rezone this to take advantage of some of the flexibility that the Downtown Business Arts and Culture District provides for downtown properties. And so of the notices that were sent, 0 were returned in favor or in opposition to the request. And the Planning and Zoning Commission by a 6-0 vote recommended approval.
Any questions for Kyle?
I'm just glad to see some of these downtown properties getting revitalized and reused. We need that more of it downtown. Move to approve Z2.
Second.
Motion by Wynn, second by McGee. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Z3.
This is a zone change request from M1 Light Industrial to R1B Single Family Residential District. This is in Council District number 4 as well. The applicant's requesting this change to develop a single family home on the property. It's currently, the properties to the north are zone M2 and are developed with industrial use. To the east, west, and south are currently M1 light industrial, but are generally developed with single family homes. This request is consistent with the future land use guide and identifying it as single family, medium, low density. As again, you can see here, some of the surrounding properties are currently developed with single family homes. This change will allow this applicant to do the same. The notices that were sent, 0 were returned in favor or in opposition to the request, and the Planning and Zoning Commission by a 6-0 vote recommended approval.
Any questions or comments for Kyle?
Move to approve Z3. Second.
Motion by Wynn, second by Curtis. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Z4.
This next request is an amendment to our PCD Planned Commercial District site plan amendment for the village at Cumberland Park. One of the out parcels along South Broadway is being, for the site plan is being amended to show a future building on the property. As you can see, the surrounding properties are currently developed with the Cumberland Mall. And this request is consistent with the approved standards for the overall development. You can see just on the lower part of the screen, which is the west side of the development, a new building there, a new commercial retail building. There does appear to be a drive-through associated with that, but we're not sure at this point who the tenant is for that structure. Of the notices that were sent out, 0 were returned in favor or in opposition to the request, and the Planning and Zoning Commission by a 6-0 vote recommended approval.
Any comments or questions for Kyle?
Move to approve.
Got a motion by Curtis, second by Westbrook. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Z5.
Next request is, this is an annexation request for approximately 0.8 acres of land, or 0.80 acres of land. This is just located west of Old Jacksonville Highway. That red line you can see on there is the future extension or a future alignment of Rice Road that may or may not go through this property. It may be next to the property, but the applicant's requesting the annexation of this tract of land and to rezone it as C1 light commercial district. The request would be consistent with the already adopted neighborhood commercial future land use designation for the property. As you can see here, it's currently vacant land. There's vacant land to the west and the east. The applicant does currently own the properties to the west and the east, actually to the east. They own that tract of land, which is currently inside the city limits. Of the notices that were sent, 0 were returned in favor or in opposition to the request, and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval by unanimous vote, recommended approval of the annexation, which would also establish the new boundary of City Council District Number 2, the new boundary of the Tyler extraterritorial jurisdiction. It would authorize the city manager to sign a written agreement for provision of city services to the property, and then also to adopt original zoning of C1 light commercial district for the property.
Any questions or comments for Kyle? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. Motion by McCallum, second by Mcgee. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Z6.
Next request is a zone change from M1 light industrial district to R1D single family and single family attached residential district. This is on Walton Road. The applicant's requesting the change in order to reconstruct a single family home on the property. It's currently developed with a single family structure, but they do plan to demolish that structure and rebuild. And so the adjacent properties to the northwest and the east are currently zoned M1 light industrial, and they're developed generally with single family homes. There is industrial use to the north. And then on the south side across Walton Road is R1D, which is what the applicant's requesting to do here, and are developed with single family homes. This would amend the future land use guide to single family and single family attached. And again, the applicant is requesting to rebuild the home on the property. You can see the current structure on the top left picture there. Of the notices that were sent out, we received 1 in favor and 0 in opposition to the request, and the Planning and Zoning Commission by a 6-0 vote recommended approval.
Any questions or comments for Kyle?
Move to approve.
Second. Motion by McGee, second by Curtis. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Z7.
Next request is zone change from PUR Plan Unit Residential District to R1A Single Family Residential. This is off of Golden Road, Council District Number 5. The applicant is requesting to construct a single family home on the property. The adjacent properties to the north and east are zone PUR. This was originally approved as part of a common area for the PUR development. Even with this change, there still is a buffer within that development, there's a common area that buffers the the homes to the south and the planned homes to the north. The applicant is requesting to essentially break this piece out as a single-family home and have it not subject to the PUR standard, and just have it subject to R1A single-family standards of the, and again, it is consistent with the future land use guide. Of the notices that were sent out, 0 were returned in favor or in opposition to the change, and the commission by a 5-0 vote recommended approval.
All right, we do have one card from Mark Priestner. If anyone has any questions for Mark or any questions for Kyle.
No, I move to approve C7.
Second.
Motion by Westbrook, second by McGee. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. ZA.
This last request here is a similar request to the previous one, from PUR to R1A in that general area. This area here was, again, identified in the PUR as an open space, but even with this change, it's still, the development still has open space as required for their approval. And the applicant is requesting this change to rezone the half of this property to R1A to develop a single-family home, which would be along Demi Drive instead of internal to that PUR development. And again, this is consistent with the future land use guide. And of the notices, we received 0 in favor or opposition to the request, and the planning commission by a 5-0 vote recommended approval.
We do have another card here from Mark Priestner. If anyone has questions for Mark or for Kyle. Mark Priestner is off the hook.
Move to approve CA.
Second.
Motion by Westbrook, second by McKellar. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Kyle. Morning, Cameron.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. Good morning. Good morning, Cameron Williams, traffic engineer for the city of Tyler, and here this morning to talk to you a little bit about school zone ordinance modifications. So, to kind of before getting into the actual ordinances changes, I just wanted to talk a little bit about school zones. And from the engineering perspective, the number one priority for having a school zone is pedestrian safety. And this chart kind of gives you an idea of when you look at an accident that could happen with a vehicle that's going at different speeds. So at 20 miles per hour, there's a 90% chance, 9 out of 10, that there's not going to be a fatality. But as you start increasing that speed, that opportunity for a fatality increases significantly. So that just kind of shows you from an engineering and a scientific, why do we want school zones, and that's kind of one of the priorities. Another graphic, and this actually comes from our active Tyler plan, it kind of gives you an idea of the view that as you know, at different speeds, what is your view? So when you're going at a slower speed, you have a much more wider view, you're aware of what's going on around you. So those are just some of the reasoning behind school zones and what the impact can have. Another piece of this is as you actually start getting into guidance, there's guidance out there, but there's no real hard and fast on when to put in a school zone here or there. There's a lot of engineering judgment that goes into that. And I don't think we've had a lot of, say, set guidance on how we've done stuff in Tyler in the past, from what I've found. And so we haven't really codified anything because I really think there's flexibility that you need to have when you're looking at school zones, but starting to put together some guidance and kind of some policy things to help support what we're doing on our school zone practices. So one of the things that I look at and I think is important is what I call protected versus unprotected pedestrian crossings. And what do I mean by that? A protected crossing is you have a stop controlled approach. So a vehicle stops and you're crossing in front of that vehicle, or a traffic signal where traffic is being stopped. So there's some type of traffic control device that is controlling the vehicle and giving you a safe crossing or safer crossing for a pedestrian standpoint. And in those instances, you may or may not need a school zone, because why are you slowing people down if the vehicles are already stopping in those instances? And then versus, say, on the bottom picture, an uncontrolled crossing. This is actually a picture on McDonald Road. This is an instance where vehicles are not required to stop. There's no stop sign, but you have a crosswalk where you are crossing pedestrians. In that instance, especially away from campuses, those are instances where we want to look at having school zones, because you want to slow traffic down from what they're going at a normal rate so that they're more aware of pedestrians, and you're increasing the safety. Some other things to keep in mind are many times you'll have these school zones border campuses, and that's a pretty standard practice most of the time, but it's not required. An emphasis is more giving on lower, say, elementary schools than, say, as you move up to middle school or high school, you have kids who are more, they should know how to cross streets and do things as opposed to an elementary school student. So those are variables that come into play. And it also is impacted by the type of facility. Is it a high school, elementary, public versus private? Do you have pedestrian activity or do you not? Those are things that we need to consider when looking at school zones. As you get away from the campus, one of the things that I strongly believe is to keep those school zones as compact as possible. The longer that that school zone is, the less compliant drivers will be within that distance. So that's another goal to kind of look at as we look at our school zones. Another thing is we don't want to encourage kids to walk in the streets. There are locations where we might have had a school crossing and there are no sidewalks in that area. So in effect, you're encouraging kids to use the street to walk, and that's not something we want to do. Now, I say that there are instances where you're going to have kids walking, and there's one location in town where there are likely kids walking, and there are no sidewalks, and so there is a school zone that entire street segment. And that's, I think, justified in those instances, but something we want to try to limit. And then just, there are different, we have guidance on how the distances that we want to set those school zones, but there are many variables that go into that, from property lines to power sources if we have beacons. So those all kind of come into play when we're looking at the limits of those school zones. And I think the other big thing is we just want to make sure that our signage that we use commands attention. If we have lots of signage, eventually that just kind of blends into the background, and drivers will not pay attention to it. So we want to make sure that where we have them, that they're appropriate, that they command attention, and that we're consistent in how we use that signage. So with that, kind of getting into some of the updates that we've done. So I would call this kind of a first phase. We didn't look at every single school and everything. We probably bit off a little more than we could chew at times on this one. But we worked very closely. We had TISD here this morning. Worked very closely with TISD. They were a great partner in looking at this and kind of the process that we went through. Took our existing school zone maps, gave them TISD. They marked up where they had questions, where they didn't think we needed school zones, where they thought they needed additional school zones. And then we as staff, we actually had an intern last semester in traffic engineering who helped me work through this. He's a student at UT Tyler. And we went and visited many of these places, did observations, documented things that we saw, and then came back with those recommendations to TISD. And then we also took that to our traffic safety board, who in December went in more detail on each of the locations, and then they recommended these ordinance changes that we brought before you today. And so kind of just, I won't go into every school zone that we're making changes at, and if you have questions, then we can get into that. But really just kind of the focus areas were removal of school speed zones that were no longer applicable. There were campuses that TISD no longer used, and so we got rid of those. Additions to existing school zones to make sure we have consistency on how people enter that school zone in the signing from side streets, that you're aware that you're entering the school zone. So there were some additions from that standpoint. And then just new school zones in general. So those are on this PowerPoint. Is Hubbard Middle School on Hubbard Drive. That's a brand new school zone that was not there previously. Griffin Elementary, this is Border Avenue. It's on the very west side of that campus that didn't have a school zone before. Douglas Elementary, this is an example of that school had been rebuilt and now it faced a different street than it did before. And so we are now hitting that ordinance to make sure that the streets that people drive on and that bound the entire campus have a school zone. And then Rice Elementary, that's Briar Cove Drive, is another one. Again, there had been an extension added on that kind of connects Briar Cove over to Old Bullard for circulation. And so again, kind of hitting the street that borders that campus. So those are really the highlights, and that comes to the recommendation. I will not read all of that because there are, like I said, we hit a lot of different things with these updates. And again, this is kind of more of a first phase. There's more for us to look at in the future, but it's a great step, I believe, that we're taking for updating these school zones.
So for an example, like Andy Woods, where you've got Fry, you got all these kids that are walking up and down Fry to go to Andy Woods. And there's no sidewalks. Are there changes that were implemented for a situation like that, or?
That is not one that we looked at specifically, but those are the type of things that we want to see if we can improve, work with TISD, and, do we need to add sidewalks? Is that an area? Through the half-cent program, we've talked about identifying a sidewalk program. So those would be things that we could kind of focus on and have these further discussions. The one that I kind of had specifically, there were kind of two, and I forget if it's Griffin or not, but up on 29th Street near Texas College, that entire roadway is a school zone from Grand over to the elementary, because you probably have lots of pedestrians walking down that, and there's no sidewalks. But one of the things that, as we're going through these observations, you go down to, I believe it's 27th Street, we now have sidewalk all the way from the school over to Grand. So can we work with TISD, and that's conversations that we had, and we'll continue doing, to move, hey, this is the route that we want kids to go. That way we can eventually get rid of that school zone on 29th, and we have a sidewalk facility for the kids to walk on.
Can we get TISD to pay for the sidewalks?
Cameron, I'd like to piggyback onto what Mr. Mayor was saying, and we want to welcome Dr. Crawford to Chamber today. But what concerns me, I don't know how much you studied the North Campus of Tyler High, I guess. I see a herd of students walking down the side of the school, in front of the school, and then they run across the street of that main loop. They don't walk across any lights. They just run across the middle of the street. And I mean, it's a lot of them, usually 20, 30 of them that's just walking across. I don't know how much study looked at that, but that is a real concern, that they're not using lights. There's no sidewalks, no crosswalk. They just run across the street.
And just make sure, Tyler High School there at the loop, kind of northeast loop, correct? Yes, ma'am. So we have definitely looked at that. We've already gone through so anytime, especially in a situation like that, you're going to need a protected crossing.
Right.
Traffic signal, crosswalk, traffic signal of some sort. We have tried to, and TISD I think has done a great job. There is a pedestrian traffic signal at Lions Drive, which is the main traffic signal that goes into campus there, kind of on the south side of the campus, where the students could use that pedestrian traffic signal to cross. But it is a long, you're talking about if you were to come out of that main entrance for the school, walk down to that traffic signal, cross over and back, it takes 4, 5, 6 minutes for someone to do that. Human nature, are we going to do that?
They usually run right across in front of that dollar store. That's there. It's right across from the church there.
So what we have, we've already gone through the process of doing a pedestrian signal crossing warrant for that. And at this point, we need to work with TxDOT. Since the loop is a TxDOT roadway, we as the city have to go forward and say, hey, this is what we would like to do. Is this something that is available? And then if we get the go-ahead, then the funding piece to get something constructed to help with that crossing. So it's definitely on our radar, something that we're working through.
Great.
In the meantime, because we've been working on this for like the past 2 years, I feel, we've worked with the principal at, as far as at Tyler High School, and Dr. Crawford has worked with us very well. Police department's been involved. They've tried to look to see how can they change some of their traffic patterns, where can they close off access, kind of putting out announcements regularly. Don't, if you're going to cross, either cross at 110 up north of there, or at that signal, or at Lions Drive just south of it. But yeah, we've been out there and personally watched while school lets out, and yeah, the children
Take
all of a
off.
sudden, yeah, will eventually go, you know what, we can make it, yeah, and take off.
True. Thank you, thank you.
Cameron, the crosswalk that is at UT Tyler from the apartments across Old Omen and then TJC from the dorm, did they come, does TJC and UT Tyler come to us and go, hey, we need to put a crosswalk here? How does that work?
Yeah, so anything that has to do with within the street roadway, crosswalk type things like that would be coming through the city. Recently the one on Old Omen there by UT Tyler, it was relocated. UT Tyler had some sidewalk work that they were doing, and so that was in coordination. We approved and reviewed those plans and updated that crosswalk as a piece of that project.
Did they pay for the signalization of that crosswalk?
They did.
Okay.
Cameron, you and I have talked about, and I think it's now in Councilman Mcgee's district, Good Shepherd Elementary School. Any updates with that? Is that going to be in phase 2? Are y'all still looking at that? I don't know if adding sidewalks is the answer there, or adding a school zone there, but I've received a lot of phone calls about that area. Is that on the radar still?
Sure. So I think, two pieces to that. One, I would speak to private versus public and what pedestrian activity do you have. And I think that's one of the things that we have to look at when you're looking at the schools. Is a school zone appropriate for that private school where there is or isn't much pedestrian activity? But the other side of that is actually Good Shepherd is looking at some improvements to their campus, and as part of that, we are looking to get sidewalks added around there and see if we can't get pedestrian signal added to the Sunnybrook at Old Jacksonville. So because they're looking at a sidewalk on on the opposite side of Old Jacksonville from the campus. Okay. So because we've had those conversations, we were able to make those comments during the review of the plans. So I'm hoping that sidewalks, at least they're adjacent to the campus, and a pedestrian signal will be hopefully something we can get accomplished in the near future.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions for Cameron?
Move to approve 01.
Second. Motion by Westbrook, second by Curtis. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Cameron. Good morning, Amber.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Council. How are you doing?
Good morning.
Good. Well, I am super excited to bring forward this opportunity to hire Tool Design to prepare the downtown public space design plan. Tool Design are the experts in this field and have many success stories to back that. This plan will help expedite the process of establishing a consensus for the future design and feel of downtown. They will be achieved by multiple downtown stakeholder meetings and stretching the typical approach that we have to public spaces. The creation of the downtown public plan is outlined in not only our Tyler First chapter, our historic preservation strategic plan, and our downtown strategic plan. Looking around downtown, I know you can see numerous private investments. We have some right here by City Hall, but also we have many in the east. We have some in every corridor. So this is the city's opportunity to prepare for that growth and demonstrate our commitment and support through public-funded projects in the heart of our city. Establishing a plan with community support is valuable in transforming downtown into a destination that is engaging, attractive for developers, multimodal friendly, and safe. The Main Street Board did recommend approval of this plan, and we do have Stan Anderson, our chair, here today to help support that. So Stan, if you want to.
Member, Mayor, Council, glad to be here today. I am here, as Amber said, as the chairperson for the board, the Downtown Main Street Board, and we did meet December 7th in a special meeting and voted unanimously to approve going forward as a recommendation for the council to go forward with the Tool Design Group. They have been here before. We have met with them They kind of gave us a little snapshot of what they do, how they do it. And as Amber said, with all the things that are happening downtown, and everything seems to be really building a lot of momentum in a positive direction for downtown. There's no better time than to implement a plan. These guys are kind of teed up, ready to go, have been here, have seen our town and stayed here for a week. We do know there's, questions with downtown, with the square and the courthouse and all that, that is beyond our scope, but overall, we feel like with the medical school coming in, the Rose Complex being redone, the apartments, all the stuff that's been done on Broadway already, Plaza Tower, there's just too much going on to not capitalize, especially with this funds that we're going to get that will help finance this, so we don't want to miss that opportunity. We just feel like you can't pass this up, and that's kind of our recommendation to y'all today as the Main Street Board. And I'll take any questions.
I don't have any questions, but I'll make a comment. City manager and I and several others went to Sulphur Springs, as y'all probably know, and Tool Design redid Sulphur Springs over a long period of time. But what they did was remarkable. And when I'm singing to the choir, but when you see the sidewalks expanded where people are in restaurants eating outside, and you see the trees that they're not planted in the median, they're planted on the sidewalk so that people can actually sit under the trees in the shade. And you just see what they've done. And what it creates is the lights are down, there's no red lights, and so people are actually saying, please cross the street instead of rushing to beat a light. And so it creates this kinder environment. And what I saw there was amazing. And when, like you say, when Tool came before to do kind of the week-long purview of Tyler, and to see their ideas, some are kind of crazy that I'm not sure if I'm totally on board, but most of them are it could really change our downtown. And like you say, there's so many things going on, and to me, this is to carry it just one step further to make it even more magnificent. So I think it's a great company. They do this all over the country, and I'm excited about this opportunity. So do y'all have questions for Mr. Anderson or for Amber?
So what they would be doing is helping us develop a written plan for the...
Yeah, it's almost in their name, design, Tool Design. They're going to, help us. From what we saw before is, the streets, all the public space. They're not going to come in and say this building. Now, they did recommend some design, like Don said, or the mayor said. They recommend some stuff, but we don't have to follow that.
Sure.
But the streetscapes, all your public space, we're still relying heavily on the private investment in the medical school and the apartments here and all the other projects that have been completed. But we need they're going to help us come up with a uniform look for our streetscapes and the public spaces and accessibility and flow and, concerns with traffic, parking, all that stuff. They kind of help make it very pedestrian friendly, which is what you want downtown to be. And going with them, they have the experience. They've done some projects in East Texas and elsewhere. They showed us other, South Bend, Indiana. So we've seen different. It's not just Sulphur Springs that we're hanging our hat on, but having lived in other cities that I've seen downtowns be revitalized, and a lot of it does come from private investment because you need those people to buy the property to fix it up. But you also need the city to come through and provide the streets, make sure they're all functioning, the sewer, you need all that stuff to really make these buildings more desirable. And you've already got the footprint down here with downtown, you've got the buildings, you've got the groups coming in and buying them up. So I think, like I said, it's just now's the time to strike and put this in place.
How much, you mentioned funds available for this, how much, I didn't remember reading that in there.
The contract is a small, I say small, but it's, you know, it's phased. So there's going to be the hiring them and having them as a payment. I'm not sure what the
Well, no,
dollar is.
I thought you said there were some funds available to.
Oh, yeah, no, there's the ARPA. I want to make sure I said that right.
So the potential to utilize some of those funds and go to the half
The
cent.
ARPA funds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's beyond my scope, but, you know, that's how it was explained to me. And, you know, like I said, it's just, it seems like everything's teed up just right, so let's strike while we can.
Any other questions for Mr. Anderson or Amber?
Move to approve M1.
Second.
Motion by Curtis, second by McKellar. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And also say Dr. Crawford that's back there, he's also on that Main Street board, so thank you for your support of this as well. Thank you.
Well, I heard that didn't come from Crossing.
Cameron's back.
Can't get away from me today. Got 3 items here to cover in a row. But this first one is a professional services contract with HDR Inc. For the interim city engineer position services. So HDR and Jacob Walker have been serving as the interim city engineer since about June. And so this is really an extension of that contract for $45,000 for up to 5 months. Half of that, 50% of that is paid through the salary engineering services fund, and then other 50% comes from the half-cent CIP fund. And so again, this is an extension of those services as interim city engineer.
Jacob Walker's probably one of the best workers I've seen, so I'm glad he's sticking around. So, any questions for Cameron?
Move to approve M2.
Motion by Westbrook, second by Curtis. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. M3.
M3 is professional services contract for Davis Dixon. So Davis, you're very familiar with Davis. He's come on to help with some engineering interim services as well as direct kind of the half-cent sales tax CIP program. And so his contract actually ended in December, and so this is a new contract with him to extend up to another 5 months, again, kind of in this interim period for us. And so that is for $41,000, and that comes from the half-cent sales tax.
Well, now that I see Davis back there and I've touted Jacob, I guess I need to say, Davis Dixon, you do a fabulous job as well. We're glad that you're still hanging around. Any questions for Cameron?
Move to approve M3.
Second by, or motion by Wynn, second by McGee. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. M4.
All right. M4 is an engineering contract with CT Brandon Corporation for the Legacy Trails Extension Project. You're probably very familiar with this project. This is one transportation set-aside program grant that the city has. We have the existing Legacy Trail. This is another kind of the northern portion of it. It will be from the future Stewart Park, which is on State Highway 155, up to Pete Elementary. It's a 12-foot wide multi-use trail with trailhead parking at Stewart Park. And this is for the engineering that the city pays 100% of this. It was approved by the half-cent sales tax board. When we get to construction, 80% will come from the grant transportation set-aside program, and then 20% from the city for that project. And so the request today is for the city council to authorize the city manager to execute an engineering contract with CT Brandon Corp. in the amount of $354,000 for the engineering design.
We do have a card here from Bob Breedlove, who also does a fabulous job doing stuff for the city of Tyler. Any questions for Bob or Cameron?
Move to approve M4.
Second.
Motion by McGee, second by Curtis. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And I will say that I'm thrilled about this project. I know everybody else is, just to have this new trail go from Stewart Park all the way up towards the Rose Garden. And it will be nice at some point if we can figure out how to connect the two legacy trails together so we can go all the way from South Tyler to North Tyler and just make just one big long.
Appease me, Mayor.
Pardon me?
Appease me.
We're working on it.
Thank you.
So it's a great project, so just thank you for being a part of that.
Yes.
Jacob?
I wish you wouldn't have said that about me. I got a red face. Mayor, Council, City Manager, good morning. Today, M5 is about the Crack Seal Award. That's our yearly 2022 Crack Seal Award project. We've got 3 bids. You know, these are the, I guess, background a little bit. These are the streets that are going to either be seal coated or overlaid, and they will have they'll have crack sealing done beforehand so as to preserve the underneath of the pavement before you go back on top of it with either the seal coat or the overlay. So we received 3 bids. Let's see, am I controlling the slide?
Yes.
Thanks, Cameron. So these streets were prioritized as part of the PCI score as well as staff input with our own Chuck Sampson. And you're doing about 75 lane miles worth of crack sealing with this contract. It's citywide, and you see on the map there. And then construction will start this month and go through June. So this project is funded half through the half-cent sales tax with the overlay, and then half with the seal coat project out of the general fund. And so we're excited that we got 3 bids. The 3 bids were below the engineer's estimate and lower than last year. So the low bid is National Industrial Maintenance at $238,751. We also had bids from American Pavement Solutions and Morton Enterprises. National Industrial Maintenance is a new contractor to work in City Tyler, but we've done reference checks with them, and other cities have been pleased. They've done work well, and they do this work frequently, so we're excited to have more competition in the city. We asked, the recommendation is to approve this contract, and these guys will start getting to work soon.
I know we all get asked this question about crack seal, and we all see it being done. But what, you did that before the overlay. How much time does that buy you before you have to, just kind of explain how that works?
Sure. So what it is, where there's cracks in the surface of the pavement, you want to fill those with asphalt, this tar, and so you fill it with oil, and it will seal it up from more water penetration. That's the worst, is the water is the enemy of the pavement. So if we can keep the surface shedding the water rather than taking it in, it prolongs the base and the subgrade of the pavement so that we have a healthy structure. Then when you go back on top, you are basically building on top of a solid foundation rather than something that's got some cracks in it, especially with the seal coat where it's just real thin right over the top. So we fill it with the oil, it'll fill in, and then it will give you basically a new structure for the seal coat and overlay to go on top of.
Okay. Any other questions for Jacob?
Second.
Motion by McGee, second by Curtis and McKellar. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, now we're down to the consent agenda. Do we need to have anything pulled or make a motion as is?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Have a motion by Curtis, second by McGee. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. City Manager's report.
Mayor and Council, just since we were bragging about engineering a minute ago, as far as what great engineers we have that work with us, a little bit about traffic operations. And so just during the past month, we've had the new equipment installation begin regarding our traffic signals. 17 new vehicle detection camera systems have been installed and are operational. 70% of those new traffic signal controllers have been installed in the field. 30% of the new cellular communication devices have been installed. And then portions of the new central system and software are up and running, with additional intersections continuing to be added. And so we anticipate all the new field equipment to be installed by the end of February. This has already allowed for us to see real-time alerts for red flash events and giving staff the capability to remotely monitor intersection status throughout our city. So hopefully our citizens and those coming through our community are seeing that at our traffic signals, and as far as starting to see better connectivity and ability to get through those as they travel our streets. Rose Complex, the tilt walls started going up this week, or actually last week, and those are continuing to go up. The trusses are en route for the roof. We are still on schedule for the middle of January for that portion to begin. Rose Park Drive, adjacent to the Civic Theater, is on schedule for its construction. And then we have some underground electrical work from the new Conference Center site across Fair Park Drive to the new Encore service that's starting up this week. We are running into a little bit of a snag in relationship to some electrical boxes that are still needed, and so that one we're monitoring to see if that's going to cause us for any type of setback. But other than that, everything else is on schedule. And then over at the library, the third annual Winter Reading Challenge wrapped up last Friday, with 105 completing the challenge, including 44 adults and 61 kids of all ages. And this was a 61% increase in total completions from the first winter challenge that we did back in 2019. And so we're proud of all the adults who took on the challenge to read 3 books during this Christmas break, and all the children who took on the challenge to read 5 hours as well, who completed the challenge and earned rewards, including a free book coupon and a chance of winning a raffle prize basket. And so that was a great job by all who participated with that. And then finally, in relationship to COVID-19 and with the Omicron variant especially, that is starting to cause impact on services with the city. You will see an email or a press release later today in relationship to utility billing and different hours that we're going to be able to do there. Just because of staffing issues there, we've already instituted that with municipal court due to staffing concerns. Police and fire continue to monitor their activity, and it is causing us to drain on overtime because of the amount of people we need to pull in to be able to make sure that we are able to both man trucks in the fire department as well as continue patrolling with the streets for police. But different services are being impacted, and we are looking to see how we can make sure we are effective in providing the services as needed, but able to do it in a way that is safe for our employees and safe for our community.
Thank you. Any other comments for the city manager before we adjourn? Okay, I would like to say happy birthday to our councilman, Mr. Bob Westbrook. Happy birthday. Just keep them
I
coming.
mentioned to a couple of other councilmen that this is the 19th anniversary of my 50th birthday.
Well, happy birthday. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
One more time.
Got a motion to adjourn.
You too, Counselor.